Hey guys, I'm Austin from Spur Design Garage. Today I want to talk a little bit about the product design development process, all the little decisions and iterations that I go through when developing something like a seemingly super simplistic product like a card wallet or a keychain or a phone case, something like that. I'm going to show you really tangible examples of all the prototypes that I went through to create something like the Chapman card wallet. And describes some of the decisions and the thought process and all the different steps I take to create products even better and better and better, and just continuously iterate to make something more improved and better for the end user and for someone who is buying a product like this. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the very specific technical things that I decided on in the Chapman card wallet, as well as some of the phone cases that I've developed about a year ago, and talk a little bit about why you never want to settle for good enough. I think in general, a lot of people misunderstand how difficult it is to develop a product, even a really simple product like a wallet. There's a lot of trial and error that it takes to prototype something and to make sure that your idea is really going to be of benefit for the end consumer or for your brand or whatever purpose your product is serving. A lot of people mistake the idea that maybe you were going to sketch a few ideas out on paper and then just immediately jump into creating the perfect prototype that is going to solve all of the problems that you're looking to solve. And this generally just isn't the case. I'm going to show you a product that went through so many iterations of just really trying to dial in all these different little details and make sure that it functioned correctly and looked correct. So let's get into that. This here was called the Flat 6 phone case for the iPhone 12, I believe. It was a product that never really worked out. Unfortunately, I think the concept and the idea behind it is still really cool, but I'll show you some of the reasons of why it didn't work and all the different steps that it took to even get to this point. Here in this box is a really large assortment of all the different prototypes that I went through to create this thing, and none of them were correct. There's, some of these were not printed in the correct material. They weren't flexible enough, or they were too grainy and gritty and I had to do too much post-processing. Some of these are exploring the wall thickness of the side panels to make sure that they could slip over a phone properly and have enough flexibility. Some of these had different stitching patterns in them. Some of them were scaled differently, or I had different radius in some of these window cutouts just to examine those as aesthetic models. Others were printed primarily to check what the color ended up looking like and the finish ended up looking like. These are nowhere near kind of the amount of prototypes that I went through to create this final model here. And like I said, in the end, this didn't really work out. I was not comfortable enough selling this. It just wasn't flexible enough. In order to do a product like this properly, I would have to do injection molding, which would just be a huge cost for a small startup business like mine. I just couldn't find the right material combination to do these in 3D printing. But if you have recommendations for 3D printing phone cases, definitely let me know in the comments. I would love to hear more about it. The concept behind this was pretty cool, I thought. This was based on a 911 GT3 RS seat. So you get this kind of framed metal cutout style design near the camera, this nice leather panel here that is stitched through the 3D print and then through to the back to provide this nice surface for your phone to slip on. Here's the final version of the Chapman card wallet. I'm super excited about this product, really proud of how it turned out. It's a very minimalist card carrier. But I think, like I said in the beginning of this video, a lot of people misinterpret how easy it is to develop something like this. I mean, it feels like such a simple product. There's 2 leather panels, there's a liner in here, and then a durable metal frame for the front. But this really went through so many iterations. As you can see, this is the final. The previous version was slightly different, and I'll get into what some of those things were. But before that, even, there was this version here, which came out last year. There was this version here, this version here, and this version here. And these are all just kind of small examples of what the prototypes were. There was a lot more than this, a lot more trial and error with regards to material, size, shape, functionality, all of those different things. So some of those things, this was the first prototype. I had this idea for a chassis inspired metal frame in the front and leather pouches in the back. And I just wanted to make sure that I could actually stitch through some sort of material into a leather panel and see how large I would have to make this to put cards in there. This was obviously a very rudimentary 3D printed version that just really was all about for myself so that I can take a look at it and understand what this might look like in physical form. None of this was going to be final color or material or anything like that. I was just really trying to understand it from a very conceptual standpoint. This was after doing a lot of different sketches. And again, this is 3D printed. Just really trying to understand if cards could even fit in something like this, if you could function with them through these notches and push them out. I started getting into a little bit more of a refined design. So sketching a little bit more on what this durable frame is going to look like. There is my Spur logo in there in this nice little debossed region. The cutouts are a little bit more defined. And then thinking more about this pocket situation. So there's a lot of different pockets in here. This is all suede material that I had lying around. I was experimenting with little details. You can kind of see that lightweight icon in there, and just determining whether or not I liked these different parameters or not. And again, this is all following tons of sketches, tons of research, thinking about who the product final user would be, what other competitive products look like out there in the market, what kind of price point I would sell this for, how the thing will function. And there was a lot of issues here. You know, there was like, what's the point of stitching up in this area? There's no reason for that to be there. The material didn't function correctly. You know, I learned very quickly that stacking up this many layers of suede just didn't work. Feels a little bit flimsy, and just not the final kind of quality that I wanted to come across. So I further refined the shape, and these notches worked a little bit better. I sourced a better supply of leather, you know, a nicer grain finish, started cleaning up the edges on here. This is American bison leather. Started finishing the edges on these. And this was considered the first Chapman that was on the market. So this was the Chapman Sport with the recycled filament frame, which allows, you know, a lot of flexibility, but still a lot of durability. You can slip a lot of cards in here and the leather will start to form over time over those cards and mold to how many cards you're looking into. But I wanted a slightly more premium version as well for people who are willing to pay up to a more durable frame, you know, something that is powder coated in steel, and then think a little bit about this inner liner. Some of the complaints that I was getting from this one was that the cards would get scratched on the interior of this. So I was thinking, okay, well, I can create some sort of liner that would be 3D printed here at the Spur studio, and I could customize the colors. It could be kind of a cool color pop. You know, you can see it in the side. This will provide protection from that durable frame and just give you a little bit of a larger cavity to put cards in. So this upgraded it to basically 4 to 5 cards. You know, this has nice Italian leather. And this was all hand finished, hand cut, hand sewed, like all the other products, but definitely starting to look into refining it. And this particular one was based on the John Player Special Formula One liveries of the 70s through the 80s, I believe. So I still really, really like this version, but there was some things that I just wasn't super satisfied with. When you slipped cards in here, there definitely was a lot of wiggle room, so I'll demonstrate that just a little bit. If I put, you know, this card in here, you can see that it slides around quite a bit. It's not quite as tight and compact as it could be, possibly. And so I wanted to develop the next stage of that. There's also a couple of other things that I noticed about this one. In particular, the stitching up in here. There's an extra, I don't know if it's coming across in the camera, there's an extra stitch up here above where the steel and the liner is feeding into the leather. And that just becomes a really, really big wear point. So, you know, if over the years you're starting to wear this stitch out, it could theoretically pull the rest of the stitching out and you would have to get it repaired in some way. So I wanted to minimize some of that. The cards weren't especially easy to get out. You know, you have this notch up here, these windows down here that you can pull them out. So I think it's a really cool looking Chapman card wallet, but I definitely could make some updates there. So that's where this year's model comes in. This is in gloss red. Wanted to experiment with some of the colors and as well as the customization of this particular wallet. But this one is slimmed up. It's narrower. You can see kind of how much smaller it is in comparison to the previous version. And that is all deliberate to make sure that your cards fit especially snug in here. So makes it a lot more compact, feels a little bit less lunky in your pocket. Not that the original did at all. And then there's additional notches in here, which I think add to this idea of the chassis inspired look. So you get a notch in the bottom, which you can now push cards through and then pull cards out from the top. These windows are slightly bigger, so you can also push through there. You can also push through this slightly bigger notch. And then you get the notch in the top surface up here, as well as this bottom pocket or this rear pocket, and then the notch in the bottom. So all slimmed up, a lot more thoughtful. These edges are a lot more nicely rounded off. Everything's just a lot more usable. It's very fidgety. It's very fun. But this was a prototype that is pretty close to the newest version. This one never went on sale. This was, again, a prototype that I just used around. But I wanted to make this notch slightly bigger and slightly more usable. So that's where the newest one comes in. And yeah, this wallet is just super fun, fidgety, and comes in a lot of different colors. You can customize the front frame. You can customize the liner, the back leather, as well as personalization, so you can get a stamp of initials in the back leather. I would say, in general, even when you're sketching, you never wanna settle for what you think is good enough. I mean, you know, these were pretty functional and reasonable to use, but they weren't quite there yet. They can always get better. You know, during the sketch phase, I tend to sketch as many ideas as I possibly can. I never want to just fall in love with the first idea, because I know that as you know, I keep going and exploring different options and thinking more about it, I'll eventually come up with something even better. So this process never really ends. I think that this is an awesome product, but I'm sure that, you know, working through it and thinking more about the functionality of it later on, I'll continue to improve on it. As you guys have comments and start purchasing these wallets, I'll start, you know, coming up with more ideas to further update this, whether it be customization or functionality or different materials, that sort of thing. I'm really excited to see where this product goes next. Definitely let me know in the comments if you like this style video where I show you some of the development and the ideas that it takes to create, you know, different products and go through the product development process, whether it be something like the Rambler bifold wallet or some of my other leather items like bracelets, keychains, the Chapman card wallet, which I just showed. Feel free to let me know. Or if you have other ideas for videos or something you're more curious about, definitely let me know in the comments. I will answer you quickly.